All right, everybody. It's late. I'm a little tired, but I did want to make something for you guys before I went to bed. Let's go ahead and get into a little discussion topic about why I believe the casual play scene of Flesh and Blood needs to grow much faster than it is currently, and how I hope, as well as several others that I know, are hoping to make that happen at your LGS. Welcome on in, Dragonfolk. I hope you guys are having a fantastic night, morning, whatever you're ending up watching this. Doing a little bit of a night owl routine here, so just kind of doing some quick video stuff going on. It's going to be a little bit of a ramble, but trying to keep it quiet because everybody is sleeping in the house, and I'm just going to kind of keep it a little down low. But first and foremost, I wanted to introduce our new friend here, the subscriber count. We actually had hit 1640 just recently, which is actually kind of huge. I'm hoping that somewhere around 2K, we're going to do a little giveaway for you guys, and hopefully we can get some fun stuff going there for when we hit 2K. So just some paperwork I had to do there. Shout you guys out for supporting the channel. It really does mean a lot. I know our last video that we made that was about the booster box dilemma did very well. I always love having discussions with you guys, and that is why I want to bring this discussion to the table as well. So what I want to talk about today is your LGS, right? Your local game store. And more specifically, I think we see this a lot more with the states. Here in the States, I believe we see a lot more of what I'm about to talk about. But I do hear that there are a few remnants of that sprinkled throughout the states, but I see it happening a lot more in other countries than in the United States alone. And what I'm talking about is casual play for Flesh and Blood. Now, while there's always going to be competition in Flesh and Blood, there is also a means to have fun while being competitive, right? A competitive, casual kind of format, or just a general concept, right? People not going in looking to, beat up every new player that exists into the game, or even just somebody who's looking to, spike an entire armory their first time there, right? I think a lot of people here in the States, we are very, very much so dedicated to a competitive level of play for our TCGs. And the reason being is because there's some monetary value to it in most cases. And some people even are using it as a practice area for themselves going into bigger events, such as skirmishes or pro quests or road to nationals and things like that. But it is very much so often, the time where I see more people who are heavily competitive in their play than they are in their casual scene. I recently I brought a deck to an LGS not too long ago. It was a Phi deck, not really like well tuned or anything, but I did just get a Tiger Stripe Shuko and a Mask of Momentum for it. So very excited to play Phi in that event. And so I went there, and I went, I think I went 1-3, but I haven't played CC in a little while. And frankly, I have never played Phi competitively. So I had a feeling of what to do, but not like insane. The more important part there, though, is that I had great times chit-chatting with everybody, but it seems like a lot of people there were very much so on a higher competitive level. They made it a point to win. They made it a point to bring their deck and really just like slam through the competition because they really did want those cold foils that you can get from armory promos, even any additional store prizing that a store might have. And I believe that is It's nice, right? I mean, it's something to look forward to. It's something to genuinely, care about, right? Because you're not just going there for nothing. So I understand the competitive aspect, but something that almost seems to never fire at any of the LGSs in our general area that I'm aware of out here in Colorado is any of the casual format stuff. I recently, when I went to go to that armory for that night, I was told there is also a social play event that was happening that night, but nobody had signed up. It was for UPF, and you got social play kit stuff like the melody stuff and all that, and nobody signed up for it. So everybody just there wanted to play CC as they had been probably for, a year or so now. I also then had an unfortunate situation where I went to a different LGS that I drove about 30 minutes away for because I saw an ad for a commoner event, a commoner armor. I don't know if it was an armory because technically you're only supposed to run one armory a week. And I know they also run CC, which fires all the time. But this commoner event that I went to is actually I didn't even go to the event. I showed up to the store to inquire a little bit more about the event, and the shopkeeper there quite literally had told me that even though they had been promoting and advertising for a commoner event for 3 months, that I am the first person to ever ask about the commoner event at their store. And I'm not sure the exact details. I'm sure a lot of pro players could answer that. Maybe a lot of tournament grinders could answer that. But I've actually heard a couple things from previous LGS that I've been to. I've talked with several other LGS owners and even players alone. But most importantly, even players around the world about how casual play affects their style of setting up events. And I think the big thing that happens with us, something that I asked, because after I found out that armory, that commoner event never had fired, I asked the entirety of our Colorado Discord if they were willing to go to this event. And it was on a weekday at 6 p.m., but it was in the general area. A lot of people knew where it was, and it's constantly been advertised. And I asked everybody in the Discord, I said, hey, what do you think? Like, would you be able to would anybody be able to make a commoner event at 6 p.m. on this weekday ever? Like, what are the odds that you would be able to do that? And the responses I got were much of the same. The information that I'd gotten previously from other LGS owners seems to have tracked, which is essentially either it is A, too far, or B, it is the time is not good, right? The time doesn't work for people. Or C, the pricing is not enough to warrant the drive for people to go to places. I was originally told back when I was going to MinMax, that I wondered why there weren't so many young formats happening at places, right? There were not a ton of LGSs that ran Flesh and Blood events, but let alone ran Flesh and Blood events that weren't classic constructed. And the answer I got back from them was that we here in the States are very much so we're a car country, right? We need a vehicle to get to where we need to go. And it normally takes somewhere between like 20 to 45, on average, 20 to 45 minutes to drive to wherever we are from, whether that be home or from work, to an LGS that we would frequent, right? Some people are lucky and it's like down the road from their house. Some people are unlucky and they're far away from an LGS, like 2 hours plus from an LGS. Now, because that's the case, we here in the States need to make it worth the while of the player to actually go ahead and play in those events. So not only are the armory prizes super huge because most people who win the event can just take the cold foil and sell it for $20, $30 in some cases, sometimes less depending on what cold foil it is, but in most cases it's like a hero or a weapon, and it ends up working out very well in their favor. The problem there is how are we ever going to get casual events to fire if competitive events are all people want to do based on all of those things? Do we increase prizing to make it more, alluring for players who are looking to do casual play? Do we extend the time that the event goes for to make it more alluring to them as well? Not enough LGSs are doing 2 days a week where they're doing events. And if they are, apparently the casual events never get any kind of playtime. Now, as a part of the Clash committee, I do really want to make sure that LGSs can take the time to organize these kind of events, even though, of course, it is a fan-made format. It's not an official format from LSS. But even when it comes down to something like Commoner, something that is quite close to Clash in its roots, essentially, we need to find a way to get LGSs to run social play events. And so that's the reason I'm making this video, is to kind of ask, the players who might interact with this video, with my poor lighting and my wonderful picture of Briar over here in my dim, dark room that I'm sitting in. I want to know what would allow you, what would drive you to want to go to an LGS to play in a casual event like Commoner or UPF or Blitz pre-constructed. What would it cost? What would you have to get out of your time in order for that to be worth it? Because something that I've noticed through the Commoner league that happens over at the Flesh and Common Blood Discord, as well as what we are implementing here in Clash for our Clash leagues, is making those young formats, because it's, young formats go much quicker than adult formats. So CC matches take much longer, so therefore it's more worth the drive. But young formats don't take anywhere near as long. It's usually like half the time. And so some people don't want to take a 30-minute drive for, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then go back home, right? So something that I want to kind of see implemented a little bit more is the win with 2 heroes concept. This is something that is a little bit harder to do for Blitz, strictly Blitz, because, and I guess also UPF too, but UPF doesn't really do too much with this. They're usually longer games for UPF. But with Blitz, it's usually pretty fast games, but you have access to legendaries. And I think most people are already kind of like held back on like the powerful Majestics and legendaries that are in the set, or in each set. So again, you want it to be still player friendly, and also good for new players as well. So that's why we talk about things like Clash and Commoner, in which they do the best 2. You have to win with 2 heroes in order for you to win your match. That saves for what could possibly be 3 games of a young hero format in the span of just one match. So let's say you have, enough for 4 rounds. That's at least, 12 games? If you hit the maximum amount of games, it's 12 games of Flesh and Blood that you get to play at that little armory. And it feels better too, personally. I think it feels better because you get to have multiple decks in a format that cares about the budget level. Most of these decks cost $10 to $20 for Commoner and Clash both. So in most cases, you're not spending anything more than what you already bought, and you can get to have a nice variety of playstyles. You're not hooked into one class like you are in most cases with Classic Constructed. And the reason you're normally like that is because when you're hooked into one class, that class and all of its cards can be put into the new class, or really the new version of that class that comes out later on when new heroes and new classes are released. You take a look at Guardian. If people have been playing Bravo since day one of Flesh and Blood's, existence, then they've had Guardian cards that are really, really powerful forever. You've had Guardian cards that are good in Oldhim, Guardian cards that are good in Starvo, Guardian cards that will be good in Betsy, and whatever new Guardian that we're soon to get. There are Guardian cards that you can stick with in just one hero or just one class. But I feel like having a nice variety and being able to learn your matchups through having multiple different decks is super, super important to learning the game and the struggles that you can have going against certain heroes for certain matchups. Having an aggressive deck and a control deck with you, and then your opponent having two control decks, you might see that your control deck might just be better than their control and be able to beat both of them, but your aggro deck might still falter towards a control deck. So I'm not sure how that's going to be implemented, right? I'm not sure how many LGSs out there listen to my channel and want to know what I have to say. But I do hope that the message just gets spread that is a way to get more people in, right? You have a nice variety of gameplay, and it takes longer to finish your matches. You're not going, okay, cool, 15 minutes, I'm done with my match, go on to the next one, and then be done an hour and a half into you getting to the event. Another thing, of course, is prizing. Prizing is very important, and I'm personally not one to talk about prizing, right? Because, I feel like I would give so much away to a community that cared enough to continue to come in and pay for an event. But from a business perspective, I understand that prizing can't be substantially huge. I mean, you take a look at something like a commoner event in which all the decks cost $10, and in most cases, unless you as an LGS have built some of these decks and have had them up for sale, they've had to build themselves. And so they didn't buy any of the cards from you. They bought most of the cards online or were from bulk that they had already at home. And now they're able to play in these events for, $5 a piece, right? $5 a piece, though, can go right into store credit. I personally believe store credit is a fantastic prize for things like Commoner or Clash or any of the, the young social play formats, even like Blitz pre-constructed decks. I believe that is where you're going to want to be, because those kinds of prizes is enough for players to kind of maybe rack that up. They can rack up that money, and you technically as the LGS are walking away with entry fees, and you're having a play space for people to play. But in most cases, if people are just getting store credit for top 4, right? Top 4 get store credit, everybody else doesn't. You can do store credit in a pack for everybody if you really wanted to. And I still think that you'd make a decent amount in returning customer if that were the case. Having somebody have store credit means that the only place that they can spend that store credit is at your store. And so the odds of them coming back to rack up more store credit to be able to play in these events, maybe eventually you raise it up to $10 because you want to provide better prizing. But most of the times, from what I know, LGSs don't make a lot of money on their events anyway. So keeping it net neutral at $5 a piece or $7 or whatever you want it to be is pretty good, I would say. But again, I'm not an LGS owner. I don't really know. That's why I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. I want to know what you guys think. about the casual events at an LGS space. You take a look at something like Magic the Gathering and Commander. Commander started very, very casual and still to this day is very casual, but it's the most played format in the entirety of Magic the Gathering. And I mean, Flesh and Blood needs something like that isn't classic constructed. Personally, I think. If you're going to go for Pro Tour stuff, if you're going to go for Nationals, obviously you're going to want testing spaces, and that's why every LGS should have something like at least a draft night or a classic constructed night in their pool of events for Flesh and Blood. But another thing you could run in that week is just not an armory. You could run something that is just a fun little casual event to get people in, get some store credit, hang out, buy some chips or whatever, buy some new sleeves for their deck. They'll find a way to cover that cost for you so that you can go ahead and give everybody a pack for coming in and then store credit for the top 4. And it's super simple. So I'd be genuinely curious to see whether or not there have been cases like that around the world. I know places like in Singapore and Indonesia and even in Spain, there's talks of several casual, squads essentially, LGSs that are running very, very well run casual events like Commoner Nights or even trying out Clash for their events. So I'd be very curious to see what it is you guys think. Is there anything you feel that's personally affecting the states from having casual play as a more popular thing? Or do you feel like the competitive scene is just where it should stay and that all casual gameplay should just stick to lower tier online stuff? Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear from the comments here in this one. Again, I love chatting with every single one of you, and I'm very happy that I get to do so. Of course, you can also join our Discord. We do have a Discord for our channel, so if you did want to chit chat with me there, you also can. But the comments are also a great place too. I get notified on that and I read almost every single one of them. So make sure to go ahead and leave a comment. Also, like the video if you did enjoy this content, and subscribe if you are also looking for more budget format stuff. Because I do love me a good budget format. I love checking out the casual play of TCGs. So hopefully as time goes on, I'll continue to provide that information for you so that we can all have fun in the games that we enjoy to play on a regular basis. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do really appreciate your support. You mean a lot to me, more than you will ever know. And I'll see you all very soon. Nerd out.